Okay, how's that? Okay, how's that? Gonna be working right here. And try to bring that up a little bit more. Is volume okay? Can't really hear me that well. How about now? How about now? All right, I guess that's probably about as good as I'm gonna get it. All right, I guess that's probably about as good as I'm gonna get it. And do I get to listen to music tonight? It's going back in a loop. It's going back in a loop. How's that? Is that better? How's that? Is that better? I think so. Okay. I'm gonna hang out for a minute, talk to myself. Tell Buddy to stop it, Buddy. Stop it. This is the wallet we're gonna make. This is the pattern. That's my template. Okay. I said I was gonna start at 8:45. It's 8:46. I'm gonna dink around on my little computer for just one more second. Buddy, better stop. Okay, so we will get going right now. So we are going to be making this wallet. It doesn't require any stitching. We're going to punch holes. So his project, it does require a few tools that, the average person probably doesn't just have hanging out in their house, but they're super easy to make. They're great holiday gifts. People like them a lot. Really, all you need is a hole punch. All of these holes down the pattern here, they're much easier to punch with the hole punch. And we can use several different kinds of hole punches. There is hole punches like this that are, fairly cheap. You can get them at craft stores and hardware stores and all sorts of stores sell those things. I prefer these kind of punches. It's just a hand punch. And other than that, that's really the only special tool you need. I use a box knife for cutting the leather. And then obviously you need some leather. We want to use a little bit thicker leather, not so thick that you can't fold it around itself, and not so thin that it won't hold itself together, because that's basically how these wallets are going to work. This is my template. It's one that I've put together and taken apart. I just traced it. If you guys are wanting a pattern for a wallet like this, there are many styles online, and so many people have so many patterns. They're easy just to make yourself if you're design oriented at all. They're pretty easy to make. These are just little tabs that fold into these holes here, so the edge will end up looking like this. So we want a leather that is, like I said, thick enough that it can hold on itself, but thin enough that it's movable. I just pulled a piece of this out of my scrap bin. I've been making a lot of hats and stuff lately out of this particular leather. Oh, I don't know, I want to say it's probably a 4 or 5 ounce leather. It's a veg tan. It's finished. It's got oil. It's what they call a pull-up leather. So when I crinkle it, you can see how it leaves the pattern in there. So here's how we go about getting the pattern onto here. This particular leather, this works on all kinds of leather, but I can scratch really easily and just trace this pattern. I could easily just put this on here and trace where I want to punch the holes and everything. This little portion here is the closing flap right here. That's what these holes are for. This is optional. This is a wallet that I've used a lot, and I ended up not ever wanting to fold that in there. I just left it closed like that, and after sitting in my pocket for months, it just wants to close on its own. So this is an optional piece. I'm probably going to end up putting it on this for the demonstration, but you don't need to use it per se. So when I put any pattern onto leather, this is how I do it. I'll print it out on a piece of paper, or I'll draw it. All I did was take apart this wallet and put it down. Then I traced it where we need to punch the holes and everything. You could probably screenshot this if you want. There is a ruler. So the final width, when it bends right here, the final width of it would be 2.5 inches ish. From that, where it's going to bend here, and it's going to bend here, 2.5 inches. So the whole pattern itself is 3.5 inches wide. These holes are like a 7 millimeter diameter hole, which is 7 millimeters quarter-inch holes. I use several hole punches because I like this nice roundness here, so I'm going to use a bigger hole punch to create a round there. I'm going to use another hole punch to create a round here. Right here, I use a hole punch to create the roundness in the corners. So I'll make much more sense here in a minute. So what I like to do, first and foremost, is I cut my patterns out. My bench is made out of glass, so I can cut right on it, especially paper. If I'm cutting something thicker that I'm going to apply more pressure, I definitely put a cutting mat underneath me, but today there won't be any need for a cutting mat because this is all super easy to do. I'm going to be replacing my blade before I cut the leather, but while I'm cutting paper, I don't need a new blade in there. So I'm just going to roughly cut this out. And then the little accessory piece. So this little piece is going to go right there. The wallet all folds up like this. And we end up with this. So when we're all done and said with the leather, it's going to look like that. With that little piece there. I hope this is starting to make a little bit more sense. So to cut this exact shape out of the leather, the easiest thing to do is you take a piece of paper, put it on your leather so that the lines that I'm going to cut are on the leather. They can be very close to the edge. And then I'm going to take, and I could easily I could cut that piece out of right there. Or I can use over here. If I cut it out of here, I'll end up with, a little bit more scrap over here, which is fine. I can cut out of there. That's probably what I'll do. So I like how that's laid out. Next, I take masking tape. And I'm just going to secure it down to the leather. This being an oil tan, or it's got oil and waxes in it, the tape has a hard time sticking down. But as long as I'm not real forceful with the piece of paper, this amount of tape will be just fine. The reason I like to use masking tape and not painter's tape is I can't see through the painter's tape. Masking tape, if I cover up any of the lines, I can still see through the tape. One of these days, I'm actually going to take and transfer this pattern onto some of my thicker plastic stuff, and I'm going to cut it out as a template because I do end up doing this quite a bit. So if I had a template, say this was the template, I could easily just put the template down on the leather, and then I could use a scratch awl, and I could trace where it needs to go. I could easily just go over this and trace the line. But the reason I like to do it on paper is so that I can, a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy tends not to be quite as good. So this is disposable. I can draw it one time, I can make it, it can be perfect, and then I can throw it away. The next one I do, I can print out another one. I gotta make it a peace sign, sorry guys. Oh, and then look, I can make another circle here. And we'll do my logo. Too many crafts. Then I also have a maker's mark. This is my maker's mark. It's my initial, Scott and Griffiths. Goes a little something like Scott and my G. That is my maker's mark. Trying to get better at putting it on everything I make, but honestly, I forget these things. Yeah, this leather's always fun to draw in. I think my scrap pieces always end up as doodles. So now that I've got the pattern on the leather, it's not going anywhere. It'll stay put. I can now I can start to punch my holes. Let me find my little punching board. I use a cutting board and a rubber kind of backing. It doesn't need to be huge, just because I only got to punch one hole at a time. So I'm going to pick the appropriate size of hole punch. What did I say? It's a 1/4 inch. That's about right. Not going to be real fussy with the size of the hole. I am, however, going to be a little bit more fussy with the hole punch that I use. Some work better than others. And I like this punch better than I like this punch. Have a mallet, any hammer works. These don't wear out, these. So what I'm gonna do is everywhere that I've got a hole, I'm gonna punch a hole. Pretty easy, right? Right here on the where the bottom of it folds over itself, on this corner, there's kind of a funky little tab right here. Because this is gonna make a tab that's got to go into that hole. So the radiuses on these corners are the same as all the other holes. So I just need to punch out these holes. Sorry if this is loud, but so that's one kind of hole that we can punch, right? With this hole punch, I have a press that I can actually put this in and go through and press out all the holes, which makes a much nicer type hole. Or as I mentioned, these guys here, these work just fine. This one doesn't have a big enough hole. I could make these tabs with the smaller hole, I'm sure. That's the biggest one, and these just, you got to have your hole next to the edge of the leather because you only have that much space to get to that hole. So if I was to use something like this, I would just put it in there and, you know, punch the hole down. These are great, but I tend not to use them. We're just gonna knock a bunch of holes in here real quick. Stubborn little hole there, doesn't want to punch through. Hole punches are getting worn out. Need new ones. Try this one. So like I said, the radius is here, so I'm going to treat these like they're 2 holes. No, we don't like that one. So when I go to cut this, I just now have to cut there, there, and there, and it'll make a nice rounded corners. Yeah, it's pretty loud. Good thing I don't have to do it a whole bunch. But only halfway there. Better with some capitals down. Sometimes gets me down. So these holes need to be straight across from one another. Same with these, just straight across from one another. So as I punch one, because I drew them in, I try to, you know, visually just line them up. It doesn't need to be perfect, but the closer they are to perfect, the better, obviously. And then obviously we want them in a straight line. This is why I like using my press as I hammer on this. Everything on my bench falls down. And I'm sure my roommates just love the hammering, which is all right. Roommates gotta love me. A few more holes. Sorry, guys. But this will be all the little holes we've got to punch. There's only just a couple big ones. And they're really just to make nice round corners. So here, I can use a punch. These round inside corners, I can use a punch. I could also just cut them square. This is where the flap, right here, where the flap folds over is right here. So it doesn't necessarily need to be round, but you can see how much nicer that looks. I think it's just a little bit more, you know, eye-pleasing. But you could easily not put round holes here, round corners, but I will because I have the punch. Okay, that's all I need this punch for. So the bigger radiuses, like this one here, I'm just gonna get out a bigger punch. Not really too picky about what the size is. That one's pretty dull. It's not gonna want to punch through there. I picked up this little set on Amazon for really cheap. It was like $2 or something, and it's got all these different sizes in here. So I'm going to pick maybe this one here. Sure, that looks like a nice good roundness there. So these ones are really sharp and small. I just get it set, get my fingers out of the way, and give her a good whack. When I cut the bigger holes, I tend myself to want to save these little round pieces. I just know that there's something that I can do with these later, whether it's making earrings. I've done some leather jewelry where I use these as inlays into other pieces of leather. You can see that hole there. If I was to finish punching that, it looked like a little moon. That might be kind of cute as you know, a pair of earrings. So I tend to save these ones. These little punches, as Chuck Dorset always says, if you can find a use for these, you're a millionaire, which you can actually go on. I think I saw them on Etsy or something. Somebody saves theirs and sells them as leather confetti. So yeah, for what it's worth, if you want some leather confetti, get it set in there and then give it a good whack. These are actually meant to be used in my press, and they do work a lot better in the press, but they work this way too. So yeah, I got a pair of matching earrings. So now I've cut that round, that one, that one, that one, that one. So I've got this one. This can easily just be a V shape. This is so your thumb. It's right here. So your thumb can grab the cards. Round works, V-shaped works. You know, any notch in there, just a square would be fine. But I've got the punches, so why not give her a round hole. It's about the right size. Get kind of stuck in there and give her a good whack. And a bigger one, matching necklace Or look, it's Mickey Mouse, M-S-E-K-E-Y. Oh, it's like those Russian dolls trying to put these things away. These are great hole punches. There's every size in here from, I want to say the smallest one's like 2.5 millimeter, 3 millimeter. That's a really good set. Oh, look, I forgot to punch some over here. Stubborn leather. Doesn't like me punching it. I can't imagine there's many things in this world that like being punched. I know I don't like being punched. Okay. Now I'm done with that one, I promise. Okay, now the rest of this is pretty straightforward, easy, just straight cuts. So I could continue to cut this out on my cutting board. I could use my cutting mat, you know, I got things to cut on. But as I said, my workbench is glass. So I can cut right down on my surface and it doesn't really hurt the blade, and I change them all the time anyway. So here again, I quote Chuck Dorset a lot. He's if you look him up on YouTube, Chuck Dorset, Springfield Leather Company, does great how-to videos, way better than mine, I'm sure. So anyway, now I'm just going to cut right along here straight through the paper. That way I know I'm cutting in the right places. So I'm going to cut here along this line. Oh, it's getting back to the Chuck Dorset. He always, you know, and it's not just him, it's every leather worker. New cutting project, New razor. New razor. Okay, so gonna finish cutting along these lines. I'm gonna cut this line here. Actually, I'm gonna cut this off. So I'm gonna start in this hole here. Same thing on this side, start in the hole. I'm going to cut all the way down the side. Keep your fingers out of the way, don't cut yourself. Sharp things tend to want to cut into flesh. Okay, same thing down the other side. It is much easier when you're cutting leather to cut the same line several times if you need to than it is to try to push all the way through and cut it in one fell swoop. Take your time, don't cut yourself. If you've got to cut the same line 10 times, I mean, you do it to it. This leather is very soft and easy to cut, so I'm usually able to get through it in one slice. Now I'm going to start here again, start in the hole that I punched, and I'm going to cut a straight line. I do know that I want this rounded. I'm going to show you how to cut a round without trying to use this razor like an X-Acto knife. So here, just cut along the lines. Also, when cutting leather with a razor, using a shallow angle helps cut through the leather rather than using a very sharp angle. So I just got to cut this piece out, which is super duper easy. A couple straight cuts, one. So the corners on this, we're going to cut halfway through that hole to create the tab. I don't need the hole. This is to create like the male piece of the tab. So I want to cut halfway through that hole, not on the outside of it for these two cuts, if that makes any sense. You'll see it and you'll be like, oh, I get it. A little shallow there, but that's okay. These will still work. So these are not, this is going to be the male ends that are going to go into the female side. So we just need to cut open these holes. And that creates those tabs. Those tabs slide into the holes and kind of basically lock in there. So there's our strap that goes on there. Now when I look at this pattern, we got to finish cutting these, which is super easy. So it's basically a straight cut here, and then it goes around to create that tab. This is a hole, this is the female, side, this is the male side, so we need the tab here, but not here, so we're gonna cut right here. We're gonna cut halfway through the hole. Create that tab like we did on the other one. And on this one, we don't necessarily need the tab. This was just to create a nice round corner. So I started the edge of the circle or the hole, cut that out, and then we want a nice flat bottom on it. So I'm just going to connect the two holes together, and out comes that tab and creates that nice opening with nice round corners. That is very hard to cut with this, with leather. Way easier to do with the hole punch. So I'm going to repeat that over here. I'm going to take this pattern off when, well, I don't necessarily need to take the pattern off, but halfway through this one, to the edge of the hole on this one, connect the bottoms. I got that tab. The last thing we have to cut is all the tabs on this side. So every one of these holes just needs that last little slice in it. These ones do not. It's female, male. So I can take this off. I'm just going to take and turn all of these into tabs. So each one of these holes is now a tab. It's going to poke into that. So at this point, we are ready to put the wallet together. I don't know if I mentioned it or not. These are super easy to do. Oh, we need to round these corners, make it look nicer. So when you're rounding a corner with a straight edge, if you just take little bites of it at a time, you can make a nice round corner without having to try to twist. Twist that razor through there. See, nice easy round corner. Just a lot of little teeny tiny bites out of it at a time. Nice round corners. If I want, I can do that to this one too. I'm going to nip off this little corner here. This is the top of the wallet. This is what everybody's going to, you know, where you get in and out. So we want all this nice and smooth. Kind of round this one out. Round out the tip. Pointy edges on leather never hold together very well. I round out almost every corner that I can on all my leather projects. After you go through and you finish up the edge anyway, the corners they're just not the same as they would be if it was any other thing besides leather. Okay, so I've nipped off all my corners. If this was a veg tan leather, I could carve on it at this point. This would be my tooling window right here. I could do another one here, which is what I did on this wallet. This is a veg tan leather, so I carved into it. I did my maker's mark right here. Then on this side, I wrote favorite quote from Pulp Fiction. And then where the tab goes, right here, is another tooling window. I did $sign. So I'm just going to leave this one blank. Being a pull-up oil tan leather, it wants to break in and look used, not carved. So this is the tricky part, is I need to get this all folded up like this, but all of this has to kind of go the trickiest part is to get it started, and this tab has to go through the top of the leather and into that tab, and then it needs to fold over, so it's gonna look like that. So I'll try to do this to where you guys can see it. Find it helpful if I take and get that leather kind of creased where I want that crease to be. And then I want this to go that way. I don't think there's any way for me to do this with the camera seeing, but this is going to fold over and poke into there. I can grab a hold of that tab. I'm trying to pull the tab through all the way through. I want both of those edge pieces to be poking through the hole. If you can see right here, this is the corner of that tab. It needs to go down through that hole, so I'm trying to pull it down through, and I just screwed it up. Try again. I'm gonna use a sharp pokey object to help stuff. Okay, here comes all the bad jokes, guys. I need to stuff this in that hole. Get a grip on it. Come on, wiggle in there. Come on, wiggle in there. Oh, I got it in. So now you can see how it's gonna fold in on itself. So this one just needs to go over the top and into there. So I get one side of the tab in. At least when you get, if your leather is the right thickness and stiffness, at least once you get the tab in there, they tend to want to hold on really, really, really well. All right, get in that hole, get in that hole. You can be fairly abusive with the tabs and scratch them because they are on the inside of the wallet. You won't ever see this again. Although we don't have to sew this wallet, this starting them is just so frustrating. I promise this gets easier. All right, tabs through. Got a hold of it. Come on, come on. All right, got that one in there most of the way. Okay, so experience on putting these together, I've done quite a few of them now, is we want to get this side going before we get this side all done up. You do need to be a little bit delicate because it's a pain. We don't want it to pop apart, but we just want to do the same thing on this side. So the tab's got to go over and in. So I'm gonna get that corner in, grab it from the back side, use my pokey to get it the rest of the way in there. Next one, first side in. See, it like I said, this does get easier. So now I've got the first two done. I like to do this part next. This part's really easy. You just, same thing. Just poke the tabs through the holes. So get one side of the tab in, grab it from the back, stuff the other side in. See how that's working? And I mean, it's in there. They don't let go. Once those tabs close back up, I mean, that's in there. This super duper easy way to build a wallet. Or I guess this is more of a card holder. Get those tabs in there. You could do this part first too. You just want to make sure you get that on there before you get the sides all done up. So now I can just do up the two sides. I tend to do one or two and then do the other side. Try and keep it even. It makes it easier to reach in. I've put together a couple bags that I do this technique with. And pretty much as long as, if you're wondering how you figure out the hole spacing, it's the diameter of the hole is the distance between the holes. So if you use a 1-inch diameter hole, space your holes 1 inch apart from one another. And that way the post that is going through is the same width as the hole. And other than that, it's just, you just got to do the math on the circumference and get all the holes drawn on there evenly. Putting together the bags this way was pretty frustrating. Once you get into the gussets and the wider parts of the bag, it became much easier, just like putting that accessory on here. Once I can grab it from the back side of it and hold it there, it's a lot easier to poke the other side through. This tab ended up with some shorter tabs on it, so a little bit of a struggle. First project I ever do that is done exactly perfect with no struggle will be probably my last project I ever do, because I will be dead. All right, that one was a pain. Let's hope this one goes by easier. So how's the weather? Grr. I'm going to use secret weapon. My fingers don't want to hold these little tabs tonight. Oh, that was much easier. Tools. Gotta love them. Boy, this guy doesn't want to go in its hole. Go in your hole. Oh, and the other one popped out. What a shame. All that work. All right, crisis avoided. This particular leather, the more you work it, the softer it gets. So the more I fuss with these tabs, the softer they're getting. I guess they just need to get the right consistency and then I can get them through there. I don't know. But slowly but surely, I promise I am more stubborn than the leather is. Those ones went by good. Let's hope this side goes as well. All right, last one. There we go. So I got all the boys and all the girls or males, females or whatever. Makes a really nice looking edge. So I'm going to look on the inside and I'm just going to make sure all those tabs are nice and even and they're spread out, which they look good. Usually I don't have any problem with them. I don't know how well you guys can see in there, but so now I like to take my cutting board and my thing and I'm just going to hammer down my what do you call those? They're not stitches. I'm going to hammer down my edges. I'm going to fold it over. You know what? I don't even really like using that flap like I mentioned earlier, so I'm going to tuck it over here. Give her some love taps. This right here is a bit skinny for here. I could easily trim this down to make it fit in there. I'm not going to because I'm not going to use this wallet. But I can get it in there. No, I'm going to trim it down. I'm going to trim it down. Somebody's going to use this wallet. I want to take a good, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch off each side. That was perfect. That's all it needed. Little haircut. And voila, there we have it. There's your stitchless leather wallet. Here's my license. Fits nice in there. It's big enough. I fold bills up in thirds. This is the wallet I use now. It's, same size. Whoosh, whoosh. Sound effects. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All right. So, instructional video, leather wallet, no stitches, 58 minutes. And I dinked around for a bit at the first of it. So all in all, even with the explaining and the going slower, that is a 45-minute leather wallet with no sewing required. And honestly, they make great gifts. If you wanted to customize them, you can burn them. Is really honestly the easiest kind of thing to do. Is use a wood burner kit. Wood burner kits work just fine. There's nothing any fancy or different between a pyrography kit and a wood burner and a soldering iron. You know what? They all heat up and they all burn leather. So anything that you have around, you could easily just wood burn, leather burn, pyrography, whatever you want to call it, easily onto this stuff. Draw pictures. Use the vegetan leather like I mentioned. You can carve into it, which I like the carvings. I've done some that had like a basket weave on them. I've done people's names, birthdays. Did a dog. The dog was hard. Don't want to do a dog again. But yep, there you go. Leather wallet. Very used one. Brand spanking new one. After this sits in somebody's pocket for a while, it does get that nice pull up. It's going to be a beautiful wallet when somebody gives it love. Alrighty, I think that's all for this video. I'm going to be doing another live broadcast tonight. I haven't quite figured out what I want to do yet. I might be carving on some leather. I want to do another hat, but I want to carve a dragon into the leather, so I might do a video on the carving of the dragon. Might do some more spinning. I got a bunch of yarn that I need to make, so I might do some spinning. We will see, but I will be back on in just a little bit. It's 9:41 now in Moab, Utah, where I'm at. I can't imagine I will be longer than like, I don't know, an hour or so. I missed dinner time last night because I was doing these. Not missing dinner tonight. So, see you after I eat. Bye, guys. Is that right? Toodles. Peace out. Toodaloo. Adios. Ciao. Aloha. Ha ha ha.